Hey, what's up, everybody? Alf here with a little something different. I mean, it's not that different, but we're going to be talking about GBL today. We got some new things happening today. Later today, we get to see the Kanto Cup in action. So I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to showcase 5 Pokemon that you're absolutely going to see in Kanto Cup and how to beat them. So look forward to that. And we also got a new announcement today that may change up your plans for Catch Cup. It's another in-game event that's going to impact what's available for that, what's widely available as well. So not only might you want to build some of these Pokemon, you're going to want to make sure that your team can beat them. So why don't we get into it? So when talking about Kanto Cup, I think it's basically impossible not to start the discussion with this guy. Hypno is going to be everywhere. And there's a couple things that make Hypno kind of an interesting Pokemon that this meta is centralizing around. One, Confusion's a clunky move. There's going to be a lot of play when it comes to that. And 2, Hypno has a lot of different moves. There's a lot of coverage moves. You're going to be able to make some assumptions, and we'll talk about the moveset that I think is most likely to be out there. But sometimes you're going to have to know if you have to respect a different moveset. So most of the Hypnos you're going to see, they're going to be running Confusion. It's the only viable fast move. There's no other options there. Unfortunately, Confusion is quite good against most of the available ghosts in the meta. So where you would think you might want to counter Hypno with the ghost, most of them are poison type. Haunter, gonna die before you can kill a Hypno. Gengar, gonna die before you can kill a Hypno. When it comes to charge moves, though, there's a variety of options. They have access to basically every elemental punch. They have Shadow Ball, they have Focus Blast. What do you think they're going to have? I'm going to guess that most of the Hypnos you see are going to be running Thunder Punch to give you a solid matchup against all of the water types. There's a couple really powerful water types in this meta. And you're going to have Shadow Ball, because you're going to need to be able to win the mirror. Shadow Ball is also going to threaten a ghost type that comes in. So I think you can sort of bet on those 2 moves most of the time. And luckily, Hypno's so bulky, you can usually afford to take a charge move to find out if they're doing something spicy, if they've got a secondary punch, for example. So don't be afraid to take that first charge move most of the time. It's probably not going to kill you, except when it kills you. So how do you plan to beat Hypno? Well, there's 2 pretty reliable ways to do it. The first is just to outbulk it. I'm gonna highlight Lapras here. Lapras has basically neutral matchups, but even with Thunder Punch, you just win. You're bulkier, you do a little bit more damage, you get hit with Stab Surf. The other thing you could do, and the more reliable way, is to actually bring something with a type advantage. So Alolan Marowak's what I will highlight here. Alolan Marowak's got a great matchup against Hypno. Alolan Muk also does. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, this is the only ghost type in the metagame that isn't weak to Psychic. It still takes a reasonable amount of damage from Psychic moves. Be careful, you can die to Confusions here. But I do think Alolan Marowak, and to another set, Alolan Muk, who's basically the only dark type. Yes, Alolan Rat is here, but I don't think you're going to want to be doing that, although it's viable. It's going to work. So these are Pokemon that I think will handle that matchup well. Hypno is not a bad Pokemon to be at the top of the meta, primarily because it doesn't dominate in the way that sometimes Pokemon do. Its typings are not offering it a lot of resistance. You should be able to find a lot of play against it. So it's gonna probably be a relatively skill intensive metagame because of that. All right, the second Pokemon I want to highlight is one that you may or may not have a lot of experience with already, and that is Dugong. You might be thinking to yourself, but Dugong's got terrible moves. It does. You're absolutely right. Until you sink a pair of elite TMs into it to give it Ice Shard and Icy Wind. Double Legacy Dugong is one of the more obnoxious Pokemon to fight out there. If you thought the Bronzor mirrors were bad, just wait until the Icy Wind Dugong mirrors. Upside is most players, I wouldn't say most players don't have access to this Pokemon, but many don't. So the mirrors are probably a little less common. That said, it's a debuff fest. You're running Ice Shard, Icy Wind, and Aqua Tail, which is not a particularly good move. It's Water Pulse. It's still a bad move. The water move is genuinely terrible here. So bad that Alolan Marowak actually a pretty reliable counter for this. You're gonna see a lot of these, and it might be your first time playing with it. So what do you do if you run into a Dugong? Well, there's a couple pretty reliable ways to knock it down. The first way is just to punch it. I mean, let's be real here. Hitmonchan is going to be pretty good in this meta. Dugong is weak to fighting. You're going to be able to do quite a lot of damage here, run up a lot of score with Power Punch. One of the things I like about Hitmonchan as well is access to the various elemental punches. It makes Hitmonchan a pretty dangerous Pokemon, especially if you're looking for something to counter swaps. So if you think, for example, you're going to want to have something that counters a swap. If you're going to set up your team so that you're looking to bring in the Dugong, or you're looking to bring in, say, an Alolan Muk, which Hitmonchan also beats, you can run up the score with Power Up Punch and then threaten whatever comes in last with a really hard hitting Thunder Punch or Fire Punch. It's really pretty valuable. I don't know that you're going to see a ton of these because there is another fighter that I think is going to sort of dominate this meta, but Hitmonchan is definitely a viable option here. The other thing you can do is just outbulk it. Just like against Hypno, it doesn't hit very hard. The other thing with Snorlax is it does pack a fighting move, which is going to make it pretty valuable here. Snorlax has a number of really good matchups, including a pretty good matchup against Hypno, provided it's not running Focus Blast, which most of them won't. You're doing lick damage. Most of their moves basically tickle you at most. So Snorlax can be a Pokemon you see a lot. It's probably going to be a pretty reliable safe switch. So do keep that in mind as well. So what's that fighter that I think you're going to see a lot of? It's Machamp, specifically Shadow Machamp. Shadow Machamp, if you've been playing with it at all, has some really, really ridiculous matchups once you consider the bonus that you get from Shadow. It also packs a reliable coverage move in Rock Slide, which hits almost everything pretty hard. Now, the one thing keeping Shadow Machamp down here is going to be the sort of prevalence of Hypnos. Hypno is very, very good against it. Obviously, you melt. You're not going to be able to kill a Hypno before you die to confusion damage. And also Wigglytuff's running around, which also just absolutely destroy you. That said, if you are not planning to run a Hypno or a Wigglytuff on your team, Shadow Machamp may be an absolute nightmare for you. There's going to be a few different ways that you can sort of punish it, but you do have to keep an eye out for this. The Shadow bonus is insanely good on this Pokemon and on Victory Bell, both Pokemon I think you might see in the meta. Both of them obviously sort of better if Hypnos get pushed out by people countering Hypnos. So keep an eye on that sort of give and take within the meta. But if you're not packing a Hypno or a Wigglytuff, what are you doing at Shadow Champ? There's a couple pretty good options. The first thing I think sort of we're looking at is maybe the only really viable flyer in the meta, which is Golbat. Golbat's actually a much better Pokemon I think people give it credit for. The flying type is going to work to your advantage here. Obviously, you can't really or don't really want to take a Rock Slide from a champ, but you're dishing out super effective flying move. And then your two charge moves are actually pretty good within the meta. You have a really great bait move with Poison Fang, and then you get to smack stuff with Shadow Ball, which is going to make you really reliable as a Pokemon that can threaten after, say, farming out another Pokemon. If they want to bring in their Hypno to clean off your Golbat, they have to respect the fact that you can hit them with a Shadow Ball. Alolan Marowak, same thing. Poison Fang will also come in handy if we see a lot of Wigglytuffs in the meta, which I think is totally reasonable. The other thing you can do is look for Pokemon that resist counter. So I was going to highlight Alolan Raichu here, which is a Pokemon that looks pretty good in this meta. There's going to be a lot of bulky water types running around and a lot of psychic types. So Alolan Raichu going to resist psychic, going to resist fighting in this case, and you'll be able to hit very, very hard with Wild Charge. So either of these Pokemon pretty good against Machamp. I think if we're going to see Machamps, you're going to see them as the safe swap, as the sort of pivot Pokemon, because its ability to steal matchups. So having one of these Pokemon in there that can sort of punish them for going that route, make it pretty hard for them to find advantage with their Machamp, is going to be pretty okay. And it's going to be something that's not a highly rated mon in the meta, but its key matchups are very, very good. And you can never underestimate the high quality that is Rock Slide. Rock Slide will hit either of these Pokemon very, very hard. So you may have to spend a shield to maintain switch advantage, and you need to make sure that your team can win from that point as well. The last Pokemon I'm going to highlight for Kanto Cup, something that I guarantee you're going to see all over the place, is the Rainbow Sludge Alolan Muk. Absolutely one of the best Hypno counters in the meta, and just has generally high quality matchups across the board. We sort of mentioned it earlier, but I think on day one of the meta, you should anticipate teams with Alolan Muk safe swaps. It's just the thing that everyone's been talking about since Kanto Cup debuted. They're like, well, what blows out an Alolan Muk? And there's a couple of Pokemon. We're going to highlight those. But I think if you build your team on day one to take advantage of this expectation that people are going to want to safe swap into Alolan Muk, you actually might be able to pick up some good wins. Remember Halloween Cup when I recommended, hey, people are going to safe swap Azu, bring a Tentacruel. And that worked out for a lot of you. I think that's going to be similar here. Now, you can't blow up Alolan Muks in the same way that you could blow up Azus. The counters are not as reliable, but there are some very, very good ones. And I think if you build a team that's anticipating those safe swaps, you're going to be in really good shape for day one. So let's take a look at those Mons. The first way to actually clean up Alolan Muks pretty reliably is with fighting types. I'm going to highlight Galarian Farfetch'd here, not because I think it's going to be a powerhouse in the meta, although I think it's way better than it maybe gets credit for. Machamp, for example, which we talked about already, would be a great option. But Muk has a really hard time beating these Pokemon. They resist the dark moves that Muk is almost certainly throwing. Now, the one thing that you will have to respect is that sometimes if you get hit by a Sludge Wave or a Gunk Shot from Muk, you can flip that matchup. So a smart Muk player is unlikely to shield anything you do, so keep that in mind. But the fighting types are all pretty reliable. We talked about Hitmonchan earlier. We talked about Machamp. Any of those Pokemon will absolutely crush a safe swap from Alolan Muk, so do keep that in mind. It's probably worth considering. The other Pokemon, the other option you have is to just out bulk it. So I'm going to highlight Blastoise, another really powerful water type here. There's not a lot of grass available in this meta that isn't going to be pushed out by Alolan Muk, Alolan Marowak, and Hypno combined. All the grass types here, all of them are poison subtyped. So they're going to really struggle in what's looking like the meta. So in the early days, if that's the case, big bulky water types start to look really, really good. It starts to look like 2 or 3 water types on your team might actually work really well for you because there's no grass types to really blow them out. The electric types are kind of a non-entity here as well, although you could definitely see some of them coming in. I've already mentioned Alolan Raichu. So Muk is going to be a problem. Keep that in mind. Be prepared for it. Know that players are going to look to safe swap to that. If you can blow it out, do it. You're going to be in much, much better shape for it. So Kanto Cup is looking great. I'm really excited to play around with teams. I've got something like 70 or 80 Pokemon made for this format already. So when I stream tonight, I'll have a lot of different Pokemon to try out, a lot of different teams. So I am looking forward to that. But there was another bit of news that dropped today that I think is really important because the next format in GBL Season 5 is going to be Catch Cup, which is only Pokemon you've caught within this Season 5 window. And these events are a big deal when it comes to accessibility and what you can expect. So why don't we take a look at that event and let's talk a little bit about what you can catch, what you should be looking for, and how this might impact the supposed Catch Cup meta. All right, so that event is the Shiny Meltan release. So they're re-releasing Shiny Meltan, which can be gotten by the mystery boxes, which you can unlock by sending Pokemon to Pokemon Home. If you don't have a Melmetal made for Great League, I highly recommend making one. It's an excellent Pokemon, and it's going to be very good in the Catch Cup meta. It's also worth reminding you that Tuesday's Spotlight Hour is double candy. So if you're struggling on that Meltan candy, get a box today. Pokemon Home is free. Catch those Meltans with Pineapps during tomorrow night's Spotlight Hour. Ignore Meowth. It's not going to help you for anything. And make a Melmetal. Melmetal is very, very versatile. It's very, very good in Great League. It's good in every league. And even if you want to make one for Great League now and then level it up to, say, Ultra League later, the IVs for preferred IVs there are pretty similar. So you can definitely double up on that dust if you're looking at it. But there's a whole bunch of other Pokemon that are going to be spawning here that are going to be really good. And one of the things that we talked about a lot was that Jigglypuff Spotlight Hour is going to really shape the Catch Cup meta. Well, this event is throwing a lot of really interesting Pokemon into the mix to counter that. So let's take a look at those real quick. So in that top lineup here, here's the Pokemon that we're going to see a lot of. And the first thing I've noticed, and this is good for a lot of us who have large rosters, that Alolan Sandshrew is going to be in the wild. Alolan Sandshrews have not been in the wild very many times, as evidenced by the fact that Little Cup, you didn't see very many of them, even though it was very good. Alolan Sandshrew is excellent against Wigglytuff. It's excellent against a number of things, and it's something many of us have not made. So do consider that as an option, especially if you pick up a good one. I'd also take a look at Zubat, although Zubats are a relatively common spawn. Again, a good Wigglytuff counter, a good grass counter. So if you can pick up a Zubat, that's another good Pokemon that I think breaks up some of these Wigglytuff and Shadow Victory Bell teams that you're gonna see. There's a couple other Pokemon in here that are actually pretty good as well. I wanted to highlight Hoot Hoot. If you've not made a Noctowl, Noctowl is a much better Pokemon than people give it credit for. Can do a lot of work, has pretty strong stats, pretty strong moves, is a nice, solid, bulky, inexpensive option for you to utilize. There's also Cottony here, and many players have not made a Whimsicott yet. Whimsicott is a great Pokemon to utilize across metagames. This might be a good opportunity to pick one up and utilize it. So some good stuff here. A much, much better event for Catch Cup spawns than what we saw with Animation Week. And many of these Pokemon actually have the ability to counter the Wigglytuffs that we're gonna see. There's actually one more Pokemon. I didn't think about this. There's a Magnemite on this list. And I know you're thinking, well, Magnezone's well, it's Catch Cup, so it doesn't matter what it is. Magnezone's pretty decent. Magneton is also pretty decent. It has a good matchup against Wigglytuff, has a good matchup against any flyers if somebody picked up a cheeky Skarmory or a Golbat. It resists grass moves. I actually think you might want to look for a Magneton or Magnezone as well. I just saw that hiding in the list there. So there's a lot of really good Pokemon here. And what I would do, and I still recommend this, is look at your roster of Pokemon and look for things you haven't made yet. GBL is something that's going to be around for a while, and we're going to keep seeing formats that are different. We're going to see the Kanto Cups. We're going to see the Halloween Cups. If you don't have the roster yet to compete at those without spending a lot of dust, figure out where you can do some double duty. Personally, I have every single Pokemon in this list made for Great League PvP with 2 moves, with the exception of one. I don't have a Whimsicott yet. So I'm prioritizing making a Whimsicott. That's the one Pokemon that I feel like if I make it here, I'm not wasting dust. I will be looking, obviously, for something like a Zubat evolved at level. I saved a Wigglytuff that I caught that evolves basically at level. I saved a Skarmory that I lucked into that's very, very close. We'll take a couple level ups. So I'm looking for opportunities to not necessarily waste any dust. I won't be making a Melmetal, for example, unless I get a very, very, very good one. My Great League Melmetal is already excellent. I have an Ultra League one made. I have a Master League one made. It's not really something I want to spend a ton of dust on, and 100,000 for the second move is a lot. So I do think this is going to be a pretty solid event. This is going to be worth getting out there and grinding. So take advantage of it. Catch Cup is still something that I think is going to be more interesting. I think it's going to play a lot like an auto recommended format. People are not going to have optimal teams, and I think that's actually going to make it more fun. You're going to be a little bit wilder. You're not going to know what to expect, but I do think it's actually going to be pretty fun to play. So that about does it. I hope you're looking forward to Kanto Cup today. I know I am. I'll be streaming on Twitch later today. I stream every day of the week. You can find all that information down below. But yeah, let me know what you're planning to use for Kanto Cup. Let me know how your Catch Cup grind is going. I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you're having a lovely day, week, month, year, etc. And I'll catch y'all next time. Cheers.